Okay, so we'll get into when we start to talk about the older kids, what we'll talk about, and I mentioned with the mom up here, two words, mission and mentor. When I get older kids into the teen years, I want them to have a larger mission and something to focus their brain on. All of us as parents want the mission to be to do well in school. But most of your strong-willed kids don't care about doing well in school. So we've got to find another larger mission. And that will help a little bit with screen time, because sometimes kids get caught up in Instagram and screen time because they don't have a larger mission. And if I'm bored, it's really easy just to check out my phone because it's so much stimulation. And then larger mission helps a little bit with the sibling issues, because if I've got a larger mission that I'm working for and I'm really motivated by that, then I don't notice my irritating sibling as much, and I'm not in competition with my good sibling who everybody loves because I've got my own thing. Does that make sense? So mission and mentor, mentioned Nice Mom up here. Teenagers, I want them to have a mentor because they're not going to listen to you guys. You guys are good parents, but it's like, who cares? You're my parents. But they will listen to other people. This mom up here, her son is very good with seniors. So I encouraged her to find some kind of mission where her son can volunteer at a senior home, at a retirement center, even a neighbor down the street. Seniors are awesome with kids. They don't put up with any crap. And they're very good at encouraging your kids too. They really are. If you find an older lady down the street in the community and you have a teenage daughter, I would hook your teenage daughter up with them somehow, baking, cooking, doing something. There's something that happens when anyway, mission and mentor, we'll get to that a little bit. You guys are okay on the side. If you don't mind, if you're coming in, kind of sit in these two sections. It helps me a little bit. You got kids, so you can stay over there so they can run around and do stuff. But it just helps me if everybody's kind of grouped in. So before we officially begin, what we're trying to find out is, why did you come out this morning? What are you struggling with? What are your kids struggling with? If you don't want to make it about your kids, you can just say, my neighbor's kids struggle with X, and we'll talk about them. So what in particular? And we'll just kind of rattle off for 2 more minutes. You already said stuff. I know, but it's rare for a man to talk. So I want to honor that. A man actually admitted. Name calling. Okay. Okay, teenage boy. Okay, good. We'll get into that a little bit. And that's, again, where I want the mentor, because if he's got an older guy, he's like, dude, if you want to come work with me and I hear you're talking to your mother like that, I will pound you. Do you know what I mean? Not in a physical way, but there's a certain respect that comes. Like, you don't talk to women like that. Coming from dad, it's like, okay, whatever, dad. But from another adult, sometimes it just helps. Anyway, what else? Other things? Yes. Okay, so single mom, 13-year-old daughter, and just won't do anything, just sits around the house. And apparently, mom's frustrated by that. So, good, we will get into that, yes. Could you repeat that? I know, I did. I got you, so there you go. Not listening, so good. We'll do some examples on getting kids to listen. How old are the kids, or the child? 7 and 3. So here's my blunt kind of thing with that, and we will get into this a little bit more. Most little kids will not listen the first time, especially younger kids, 7 and under. Their brains are so busy and they're thinking about all kinds of things, and their job is to get into stuff and explore. Do you know what I mean? If you've got toddlers, here's your entire life. Stop it. No, stop. Right? And so you've got to give them things to do, but their brains are so busy with things. I just don't want to set the expectation for you or your kids that if your kids don't listen the first time right away, that you're doing something wrong or they're being disobedient, right? Does that make sense? Because then it becomes this nasty thing of like, well, my 4-year-old doesn't listen the first time. Well, welcome to toddlerhood. Because his brain is so focused on, and it sets up some nasty expectations. Do I want kids to listen? Yes. Do I want them to be responsible for themselves? Absolutely. But with a strong-willed child, it may look a little bit different than the compliant children who just do everything you say when you say. I consider those kids boring, right? So, I'm just kidding. But not really, they kind of are. Yes. Yes, a 5-year-old who already knows the fine art of sarcasm, right? And who is already making jokes. How many of your kids make jokes about the relatives during like Christmas that are really inappropriate, but they're so funny you can't stop laughing. There's a little guy that does that. No, but you know what it is?
Like just talk back, like smart, like not in a rude way. Like he actually has good comebacks, but they're inappropriate for the situation.
Okay, okay.
I'm trying to discipline him, and he'll say, "Well, Mom, but you didn't X, Y, and Z when I asked you to."
That's awesome. So I had a kid.
Why I have to do that if you're not going to do what I
Okay, we'll get into that. So that's very good because he's a very good, and I'm not making light of it, but he's only 5, but he already has insight into human nature. He already understands. He's a deep thinker. He's processed all of it. I had one kid who told his mother, she said, "Well, I'm going to have to discipline you." He goes, "Well, I'm not going to play with you anymore." And she's like, "Are you disciplining me?" And she goes, "Yeah, bring it, Mom." These are the kids we're talking about, right? And so he's, if you have the money for boarding school, I would consider it, or send him to Europe. No, he's going to be, so much of this, we'll get into it, is understanding what's going on in his brain. You're not going to be able to just say, like, you can't talk like that. You know what you've already done that, true? That approach is, you're going to have to work with that. He's going to be wildly successful. He's just going to irritate a lot of people. He's going to struggle in school because he's going to challenge the teachers all the time. He's going to be bored in class. He's going to have trouble getting along with kids his own age because they're boring and stupid. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm 5. Like, has he already said that?
He has a hard time getting along with other kids, like inserting himself to be friends with other
Of course, because he's 5 going on 15. He and I could talk about like geopolitical issues and we'd have a great talk, right? Wait, who's he going to talk to in class? Other 5-year-olds talking about burping and stupid stuff? He's already on to big kid stuff. So anyway, we'll get into that. So he's going to be awesome to raise. But no, he's going to be more difficult. But that's what this is about, figuring out the way that they're made and doing that. So let me go ahead and one more.
So I also have a 5-year-old daughter who's just going to do things when she wants to do it in her way, and that's it.
Good. So let's roll with that. Kids who my assumption is you're here because you have strong-willed kids who don't want to listen and they want to do it their way. True? That's why most of us are here. So let me know really quickly, if you don't mind, age groups. How many of you have toddler age kids? Good. So we'll do some things on little kids. Elementary school age. Good. We'll do a lot there. Middle school. Good luck. It is a very difficult age. If you don't mind, I'm going to be brutally honest and very blunt. Middle school age kids, relax. Most middle school age kids are not motivated, right? I guarantee you every night, here's what they're doing. They're not doing their homework. They're not doing their chores. They sit in a hoodie sweatshirt, the same hoodie sweatshirt they've worn for like 17 straight days, and they play video games. That's what they do. And you're going to get freaked out and think, who would ever marry this child? Who would possibly hire this child? Because they're not living up to their potential. And if they would just apply themselves, they'd be capable of so much more. And have you noticed the more you lecture them, the more they resist and shut down? True? They do the opposite. It never works. And I want to avoid all of the power struggles and you getting freaked out and ruining your relationship with a strong-willed middle school child. Because all that happens is you focus on everything that they're not doing, everything that's negative, and they eventually just shut down and say, not even going to listen anymore. Middle school time, it's a horrible age. How many of you have ever said, man, I wish I could go back and do middle school again? Nobody. So I want you to let your middle school kids know, and this is very important, this is the most difficult time of your entire life. It gets better after this. You get older, it gets a little bit easier. If you feel awkward, good. You should feel awkward. You know all those popular kids? They're awkward too. They're just faking it. So relax with your middle school kids. High school age kids, good. So middle school, high school age kids, we'll talk about internal motivation, mission and mentor. Mission and mentor, that's what I want for these kids. So how many of you have at least one child that you term a little bit more strong-willed? Good. Why else would you come to a parenting workshop? So here's how we describe these kids in general. They tend to be very bright kids, smart, not always academically motivated, but they're really bright, very good at arguing with you, apparently even at age 5. Very good critical thinking skills. right? A lot of these kids don't sleep well at night. Sometimes it's anxiety. Sometimes they're just staying up all night thinking of ways of getting out of doing stuff. Because when these kids wake up in the morning, they have an agenda. They know what they like and they know what they don't like. And what they don't like is anything that you want them to do. So there are power struggles over everything. And you will spend their childhood saying this: if you would just do what I asked you to do, you would be done in 7 minutes. But you'd rather argue with me for 7 hours or weeks, days or years and lose everything you own. Anybody have those kids, right? So do any of you have kids for whom consequences don't mean anything? They literally don't care. And everybody has judged you and said, you just need to discipline that child. You're like, really? I never thought about being consistent and following through. Thanks for the insight. But you've done that. It doesn't work for these kids. So we're going to go beyond consequences today to help motivate them a little differently. This will irritate you and you'll resist it, but it's okay. I believe this to be true. Strong-willed kids will never, ever, ever do things the way you want them done. You've already recognized that. They're not going to do it your way. And we will often interpret that, well, they're just defiant, they're just disobedient. I don't think that's always the case. Most of the time, what the kids are looking for is ownership. They want to own the choices themselves. They want to do it a different way. And I know that irritates you because you're like, you know what, if you would just do it my way, it would be so much easier. They don't want to do it the easy way. The easy way, your way, is boring, stupid. They'd rather struggle with it. They'd rather fail. Some of your kids struggle with failing, but I want them to be able to fail a little bit. But they want to own it themselves. They want to wrestle with it. And it's really hard to deal with that, but we're going to get into that, how to do that a little bit. Strong-willed kids will choose the harder path. They'll take the harder consequence. They just will. Right? You can even tell them, like, I'm going to wash your mouth out with soap. And they'll say, oh, could we use Irish Spring? And they'll call your bluff. One other little insight. Strong-willed kids often have to reject what you want first before they can own it themselves. That makes sense? Sometimes they will reject your faith, and it's a good thing because they don't want to believe just because mommy and daddy want me to. They want to wrestle with it because then when they finally own it, it's deep within them. Does that make sense? They'll push back against college. Why? Because you want them to go. When they finally come to it on their own, they will own it for the rest of their lives. It's just a very hard process. Big principle we'll get to is we have to learn to step back a little bit. When we step back as parents, it gives our kids space to step up and own it themselves. But we're so busy sometimes trying to make them successful and do everything the way we want them to do it, that it just causes them to resist all the time, because what they're saying is, I'll do it, let me do it a different way. You're like, I don't have time for your creativity. I just want you to do what I freaking told you to do right away. So we'll get into that. So very quickly, our experience, I'll do it in a minute or less. If you met my son when you walked in, the big tall kid handing a handout, that's our son Casey. He was our strong-willed, typical strong-willed firstborn, came out of the womb with boxing gloves on. Loved to fight and argue. I will tell you though, the qualities that irritated us most about him when he was a kid are the very qualities that make him successful now. That pig-headed obstinance will one day turn into persistence. That ability to argue and pick apart everything you say tells me your son's a good thinker. We just tend not to value good thinkers when they're young. I don't want you to think. I just want you to do what I told you to do. I want you to memorize information for a test in school, memorize it, remember it, take a test, do well, and then forget the information. Right? Is that not true? That's partially what they have to do, but we don't value kids who question things because we're too busy getting things done. But I love those questions. I'd encourage you, this just popped in my head. As we start a new year, define, what do you want for your kids? Do you want good grades? Fine. What we came to is, this is what I wanted for Casey. I want a son who is curious and who loves to learn. Sometimes that's different than getting good grades. Does that make sense? Take you down a little bit different path, but define what you want from your child. Like with your young child, I want a child who does question things. I want a child who thinks. I want a toddler who explores, not who just listens to me all the time. Does that make sense? So, we used to live in the area a long time ago, and we decided instead of bringing kids into a therapeutic office to work with them one-on-one, I wanted groups of kids in our house where we could control the environment. So we'd have 10 to 15 kids in our home. We'd make sure that the kids fought with each other, not hard to do. Make sure we disappointed them, changed plans on them at the last minute, because your kids can't deal with this, like little things freak them out, right? Little changes in plans, so that in the moment we could teach them how to control their emotions, how to calm down, how to deal with disappointment. So over the course of a decade, we had about 1,500 kids in our home. So I hope what you find today is this. There's a lot of science and research behind this, but my focus this morning is on very, very practical application. How do we make this work in the home, in the classroom? So, 2 goals. One is to teach your kids how to control their own emotions and behavior, impulses. The other goal and first goal is to teach us how to do that, because that's the harder task. So my larger goal in everything we do is generational change. My dad was career military. He was known in our home as the Colonel. So it was a ton of fun growing up. And I had 3 brothers. And all my dad knew was fear and intimidation, my way or the highway approach. And he went to his grave with that approach and missed out on a relationship with his 4 sons. We feared him, but we didn't respect him. So guess what? My brothers, I had 3 brothers, the 4 of us grow up, we get married, start having kids. Guess what we did? Same thing that my dad did. So every night we're coming home from work, our wives are like, kids, pick up the Legos, pick up the Legos. Dad doesn't like it when there's a mess on the floor, because sometimes husbands can't handle disorder in the home, right? Because the office is easy for men. I can fire people at work. I know exactly what to expect. I walk through the door of my home, there's chaos, right? And I've got an upset wife. I have no idea what to do with that, right? I've got Legos on the floor, so I just start reacting. So our wives had to manage our emotions because we couldn't do it ourselves. And a lot of wives are put in the position of, do I stand up for my child and protect him? But if I do, am I undermining my husband's authority? And that's a really hard place to be. So I believe the greatest gift I've given my son is breaking that pattern from my dad, so that when he grows up and gets married, he doesn't have to repeat it. All of us in here have patterns. Some of you are people pleasers. Some of you had that mother who was the martyr mother, who did everything for everybody else and nothing for herself, and she ended up resentful. After all I do for you. And if you find yourself saying that, that's your issue. Because your kids are never going to wake up and say, Mom, listen, how to talk with my brother, we've determined you do way too much for us, right? Other people are going to take advantage of you, but you're partly allowing that. Does that make sense? And I want you to break that pattern, because it changes for generations. So, first thing we're going to talk about for about 15, 20 minutes is this: us. We're the leaders in the home. So, first principle is this: there's one person in life that you can control, and that is whom? Ourselves, right? How many of us struggle with that? How many of us tell our kids, you need to calm down and get control of yourself? Anybody do that? They do that this morning, right? I'm going to the calm workshop, you guys better settle down. And your kids are like, Mom, I hope this is a 3-day seminar, because we need some help with this. Now, I believe the quickest way to change your child's behavior is to first control your own. The quickest way to change your child's behavior is to first control your own. We're going to go through body posture and tone of voice are huge. If I come up to this gentleman like this, what are we going to have? Yep, that's a confrontation, right? He's a pretty big guy, I'm not stupid, so that's not happening. But the moment that I do this, now what are we having? We're having a conversation. I can dictate people's response simply by my body posture, right? How many of your husbands, how many of the men in here do this with your kids? Young man, you need to get downstairs. We need to talk about your attitude right now. And what do your kids say? Why, of course, Father, I can't wait to hear your wisdom. Right? It doesn't work, right? It creates a defensive response. And you know, as soon as you square off against a strong-willed child, all it tells them is, oh, apparently you want to have a power struggle. Bring it on. I've been fighting people since I was 3 weeks old. I will reduce you to tears, right? It doesn't work. So I'm going to give you a challenge. You won't want to do it. It sounds stupid and silly, but it's very, very simple, and it works. I like simple stuff that works. This afternoon, this evening, this weekend, when your kids are squabbling with you or with each other, one time, just try it. I want you to lie down in the middle of the living room floor. Just stop what you're doing and hit the floor. And I guarantee you it's going to change the entire dynamic of the situation, not by controlling the child, but by controlling yourself. And your kids are going to look at you like, what is Dad doing laying on the floor? Because you know what usually happens is what? Kids start to squabble, and we buy into it. Young lady, I can't believe that you would talk to me like blah, 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 blah. And we get sucked into this long back and forth, even with a 5-year-old, right, or a 14-year-old. And what happens? They're leading us. We're reacting to them. But I guarantee you, that moment you lay on the floor, they're going to look at you like, what are you doing? Not arguing with you. And I want to, look, if you want to go with an apology, here's a great apology, because I'm a big believer in owning your stuff. I want to apologize because for the last 12 years, 3 years, whatever, every time you push my buttons, I react to you. And what I've taught you is you're in complete control and I'm just your puppet. And so I apologize because I've given you so much brain stimulation by reacting to you. In fact, the whole house does. And from now on, I'm not going to react. I'll talk to you. I'll problem solve with you. But I'm not going to control you. I'm not going to react to you. But I want to give you tools to succeed because I believe you're capable. If you want to join me on the floor, I'll have a discussion about that, but I'm not going to argue anymore. Some of your kids will just stop there. One of my favorite things, by the way, with my son, because he loved to argue occasionally, I'd look at him and say, you know what, Casey? You're absolutely right about that. And then I'd walk away. And he'd get furious because he wanted to argue. He's like, I'm not right. Argue with me. I was like, staying out of the courtroom. I'm not going to argue anymore. Does that make sense? So body posture is huge. Look, if you're standing like this, is anything good going to happen? Right? It creates something. So change your body posture. Tone of voice is huge. So let's go through this. In case I forget, here's one that hits late afternoon, evening, you're cooking dinner. How many moms do this thing? Guys, you know what? All I'm asking for is a little bit of help around here. And as soon as you go to that pleading tone, here's what your kids know. Mom, you're exhausted. I'm going to own you in about 12 seconds. Give me what I want right now. And they know that. And that's that pleading tone because what are you saying? I'm not in control of myself. Look, we'll even say it. I need you guys to behave. Oh, you need me to. Oh, you can guarantee I'm not behaving because I want to send you over the edge, right? So how many of us, watch what happens. Modern day parents, we tend to do two extremes. Nothing wrong with this, but how many of us start with the sweetie, baby, mommy needs your help? How many of you do the kind of sweetie, baby? Okay, nothing wrong with that. Just stop it because it doesn't work, right? So here's what the strong-willed child hears. Sweetie, baby, you scare the crap out of me because every time I tell you to do something, you have a big meltdown. And so I think if I do the sing-songy mommy tone and I start to talk like a teenager and question marks, and if I'm a Christian mom, I'll throw in scripture because I think God will actually help me with this, but he's not, apparently, right? And you do this little tone. You know what they hear is weakness. They hear it as condescending. And I'm not being funny, I really mean this. I cringe when I hear moms and dads saying, Mommy needs you to do this. Daddy wants you. I don't refer to myself as mommy or daddy when giving instructions to a strong-willed child. I talk to them like adults. When giving instructions, I'm talking to the 4-year-old, the 14-year-old, the 24-year-old, like an adult. How many of you have said before, he's 5 going on 25? There is something very settling about talking to them in an even, matter-of-fact tone. Because once you start to get a little bit of emotion in your voice, it's very unsettling. Because look, if they're a little kid and now all of a sudden the big person is starting to lose control, that's why they wind out of control, because now you've got a 4-year-old out of control and the 40-year-old out of control. Let me do a quick example. My 7-year-old is jumping on the sofa in the living room. I'm not coming in. Hey buddy, you know what? There's springs on the sofa. We don't jump on the sofa. By the way, you don't have to do the we thing unless you're jumping on the sofa, okay? Now I get it. Many of us grew up in with authoritarian parents, and we didn't want to be authoritarian. But we've almost gone too far the other way where we're too egalitarian and our kids don't have leaders anymore, right? So when I come in the living room, it may sound like this. Hey, jumping on the sofa, not happening in my home. But I love your energy, man. If you want to come help me stir the soup, if you want to come help me walk the dog, I could really use your help. Just break it down very quickly. When I come in the room, even matter-of-fact tone. Hey, jumping on the sofa, not happening in my home. I love that phrase. For me, I kind of came up with that because I always had like 10 or 15 strong-willed kids in my home, and that just started coming up. That's not happening in my home. Look, it's a statement of fact. There's nothing personal. I can't believe that you're jumping again. How many times do I have to tell you, when I was a kid, All those long lectures don't amount to anything. I'm just letting them know this is how I roll in my home. Does that make sense? There's nothing, can I keep rolling? Let me keep rolling and I'll come back. So even matter-of-fact tone says, I'm in complete control. Look, when I used to sit down and discipline kids, because that's how I discipline, I sit down. What I'm communicating is, I'm in complete control of myself. Yes is my yes, my no is my no. I'm not gonna react, I'm not gonna beg you, I'm not gonna yell at you. I'm just letting you know this is how I roll. Does that make sense so far? That tone, really, really important. That's not happening. But watch where the energy goes. When I'm disciplining, there's no energy to it. If you're gonna argue with me as a teenage daughter, I'm not getting all wrapped, because now I'm adding my own negative energy. And we'll go over teenage daughter stuff later, or teenage son, doesn't matter. I'm not getting drawn in and I'm not giving energy to it. I go very, very flat with that. My energy goes to, two things here. I love your energy. Now, do I really love the child's energy? No, freaking exhausting. But I do like the energy. Your son, the 5-year-old, has so much brain, mental energy. That's gonna be his biggest thing in life. It's not necessarily the physical part. He's just gonna struggle with being bored and finding people boring. He's gonna push buttons all over the place because he's gonna love getting sent. I'm not speaking bad things, but he's gonna love getting sent to the principal's office because he's gonna have, like, now it's like, oh, finally I have someone who's on my level, right? I'm 7 and now I'm taking on the principal. And he loves the stimulation of that and he loves the challenge of that. So I like acknowledging the good qualities there, right? I like the energy. I love, with the kids who know how to argue, I want to point out and say, you know what it tells me? You're a good thinker. You're a really good thinker, and you break things down in your brain, and I love that. One day a company's going to pay you a lot of money for that. But right now you're just going to lose all your stuff if you keep that up, right? So I can acknowledge that. But here's a big principle. Whenever you say no to something inappropriate, you have to say yes to something appropriate. That makes sense? Jumping on a sofa, not happening in my home. But love the energy. If you want to use it to do X, I'm all over that. You've got to get their brains focused on something positive. Remember we talked about that with toddlers. If your whole life is no, stop, 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 no, 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 stop, stop, stop. You've got to give them stuff they can get into, right? Does that make sense? So I'm always feeding the positive and redirecting into stuff with energy. So when Sweetie Baby doesn't work, that's when we get frustrated. We're like, you know what? You will get your butt up in bed right now, right? That is the Sunday morning before church voice, right? You are going to be on your best behavior. We are going in to worship Jesus, right? And that is right after your husband has flipped people off in the church parking lot because you're running late. Just so no one's offended. Last fall, I spoke in 1 week at a Muslim school, we're at a mosque, a synagogue, and a Christian church, and people of all three faiths told me the same thing. On the morning of their worship service, they all yell at their children. So it's something we all have in common. So, look, this is quick. The reason yelling and screaming doesn't work is twofold. One is, you can't intimidate a strong-willed child. They're fight or flight. Bring it, bring it. I don't care if your husband is 6'4", 250. I'm putting $150 on the 6-year-old because he will own your husband. It doesn't work. And the other reason is this. When I begin to get visibly irritated, all the child knows is, if I just push your buttons a little bit, you're going to lose it. And as soon as you lose it, I'm in complete control. Does that make sense? How many of you have kids who push your buttons? How many of you know that's really your issue, my issue, because we have so many buttons to push, right? That's me owning it. I know, but you got to own your stuff. So, right in between Sweetie Baby and screaming and yelling is this. It's me in control of myself. It's me as the leader. I encourage you, because it's a morning session, so a lot of the husbands are not here. Last night we had a ton of men. It was awesome. Encourage your husbands with this. Men in every sphere of life respect other men who stay cool and calm under pressure. Right in the middle of a war, we don't want our platoon captain saying, oh my gosh, they're shooting at us. Nobody's following that guy. Right when the Redskins are losing, fairly often, sorry. But when the Redskins are losing, you don't want Alex Smith when he comes back in 2020 or whenever. You don't want him coming into the huddle. You know what, we're down by 2 touchdowns. You don't know route to run. You keep fumbling the ball. Let's go score. Nobody's going to follow that guy. And I know everybody hates Tom Brady. But the reason he wins is because in a close game, he's cool and calm under pressure. Patriots aren't freaking out. They're like, oh, we're down by 10 with a minute and a half. Brady's going to bring us back. And the team follows him precisely because he's immovable. Does that make sense? So I even like, for men sometimes, I used to do this coming home from work, rather than coming home all flustered and blunt, why is there stuff all over the floor? Dad comes in, takes a knee on the floor like a quarterback does. It's a really cool thing because I can direct kids from here in a low tone better than if I start blustering. Does that make sense? Sometimes you want a quick little tool, do the opposite of what you normally do, right? Because if it's not working now and I'm all blustery, what if I go with a very low voice and I do this? What if I come alongside the child and talk in a lower and go very low key? Because your kids don't like a lot of talking, true? They'll tell you all that it makes them furious. I sit instead of lecturing, all of those things. Do the opposite and watch what happens. Does this make sense so far? So here's what I want to do a common example, and we're going to tie in controlling ourselves. We'll do meltdowns, de-escalating situations, and discipline all in one example. So one of the biggest triggers for men is when they hear their kids yelling at their wife, right? That's a huge, huge trigger, right? So let me do this example, and I'm going to make like you're my son and you're the mom, okay? So I'm coming in the living room and I hear my son yelling at my wife. Well, I instantly react. You know what? How many times have I told you, you don't talk to your mother like that? You keep up that kind of mouth. Notice the irony of he can't control his mouth, and listen to me, it's that, right? Can't control your mouth. How are you ever going to be successful in life? And I just go on and on. You know what? To your room, for the rest of the week, no video games, no food. So I'm a man, I give consequences I can't keep, right? So I do that, right? He goes away crying to his room. I walk away as the man thinking, I just stood up for my wife. And you know what my wife's thinking? No, you just screwed up the entire night because I have to spend 2 hours calming our son down and reassuring them that his father doesn't hate him, right? And so I get resentful because I'm like, you know what? If you wouldn't let your son talk to you like that, I wouldn't have to jump in and do this, right? And so there's all this resentment, and there's another good guy one, which is this. Fine, you know what, honey? You tell me you want me to be more involved. I try to help out, and it's never good enough. All you ever do is complain. Fine, you guys be better off without me. How many men in here do that? Don't raise your hand. Anyway, so your husbands, right? Look, I did that all the time because I didn't know what to do, right? So let me show you a different way. So we're going to deal with meltdowns, with de-escalating. Before you discipline, you always have to de-escalate the situation. Because how many of you have found in the moment, you need to calm down right now, young lady, calm down. It always escalates, right? But how many of your kids, a couple hours later, after they've calmed down, how many of your kids come downstairs like, Mom, Dad, I'm sorry, shouldn't have done that. And you're like, why did you do it? I don't know, right? You get that all the time. So I want to de-escalate. So, when kids are upset, we call it being emotionally on fire. Picture your kids running into the living room with flames shooting off of their bodies. What's your first instinct as a parent? Stop, drop, and roll. Put the fire out. But here's what we do as parents. Great. How many times have I told you not to play with matches? Now, you're going to burn to death. Dinner's going to be ruined. Hope you're proud of yourself, right? Because that's what we tend to do as parents. They get upset, we get upset. So, here's the phrase, and we're going to talk this morning a lot about giving kids tools. So here's the tool for calming an upset child. Motion changes emotion. Motion or movement is a very powerful tool to help a child go from here, really upset, to a calm state. Because we do way too much of it. Honey, use your words, use your words. And you know what your kids are thinking? You don't want me to use my words right now because I'll get grounded or suspended for those words. You can't process language when you're upset. Or we always want kids, let's talk about our feelings. And I don't have a problem with talking about feelings, but in the moment, I don't need you to talk about, I already know what your feelings are. You're disappointed and frustrated and really angry. What you need right now are tools to help deal with those emotions. Does that make sense? Because that can be frustrating, especially for boys. Honey, tell me about your emotions. Oh, here are my emotions. Go F yourself. You know what I mean? Like it's too much. It's like, got it. You're frustrated. Let me help you deal with that. Does that make sense? It's a little, anyway. understand that in balance. I don't want kids to bury things because then they become your husbands, right? And you'll never have an emotional connection, especially if you married an engineer. Sorry, but that was your choice. So it's very stable, he's very solid, but don't look for the deep emotional connection, because otherwise you'll get divorced and marry the artist guy who's really deep, but he can't earn a living, and you'll go back to the engineer. So, chill, give us some time, we can grow into it. So, sorry about the diversion there, but it happens all the time. I got so off track. Okay, so here's a different way to deal with it, and I like to use whatever is kind of calming to kids. I'm going to use 2 examples here. What's your name, by the way? Rob? Good easy name. So I come into the room, Rob's all upset, wife's getting upset, and I come in and say, Rob, listen, and watch, there's some energy here. I like to lead with energy, but the energy isn't coming at the child, the energy is coming toward problem solving. So I walk in the room, hey Rob, I can tell you're frustrated. Listen, I'm going to grab the football and go outside. When you're ready, why don't you come outside, we'll play catch for a couple minutes. I'm leading him. See, a lot of times we try to, you need to calm down now. I can't calm a child down when he's upset just by like looking at him and doing that. I'm leading him, we call it leading him to a calm place. I'm leading. The movement of it. Hey, I've got the football. I used to keep a football in our living room because all the kids would get upset. And occasionally I just come in and hold it up as a nonverbal, because I don't like a lot of talking when kids are upset. The nonverbal, grab the football. And I go outside. You have to wait a little bit, because sometimes it's like, oh, I don't want to go outside. But I'm leading them to it, especially if your kids like that kind of thing. Another example, and then we'll kind of put it together. Hey, Rob, tell you're frustrated. Listen, I'm going to go in the living room, dump your Legos out. In about 22 seconds, why don't you come in? We'll build a really cool spaceship. Watch what I'm doing. I'm not addressing the behavior right away. I'm not addressing that he's yelling at his mother. I'm not getting to that yet. I'm just trying to get us to a different place. We're getting some movement. I never go toe-to-toe with a child, a 13-year-old talking back. I'm not going to stand there and say, we need to have a talk about your attitude. Like, does that ever work? What attitude? That attitude. And now you have a worse attitude than your daughter. So I'm moving him a little bit. I'm moving myself. There's a very practical element to it, which is, for me as a guy, I'm not good at just standing and talking about feelings and all of that stuff. I want to be able to do something with my hands, right? It's just easier to be building something. Look, a couple other little things. There's no eye contact going on here. I don't use eye contact when kids are upset. Everybody's like, get down, look them in the eyes. I don't. Because a lot of your kids have a lot of shame, and the moment you look in their eyes, it's way too intense for them. When we're outside playing catch, much easier to have a talk playing catch rather than, son, we need to sit down and have a difficult talk. It's like in your marriage. Never ask your husband, honey, we need to sit down and have a talk about our marriage. No, we don't. Because I'll catch the house on fire before I do that. But if you say, hey, honey, I'd really like to talk to you. Can we go walk the dog? A lot easier to walk and talk because there's not that intensity of looking in the eyes, and I don't have, right? It's a whole different, it creates a different thing. Or when we're sitting and building with Legos, I don't have to look them in the eyes and be, hey, give me the red one, let's build this. Hey, good job. And I'm calming it down. Another really important point. Notice how different this is. Usually when kids get upset, we end up with, you need to go to your room right now and just calm down. And I have no problem at all with sending a child to his room, but notice the difference. When I send the child to his room, guess what's missing? I just sent him away from the very person who has the wisdom to help him through this. When I'm saying, hey, when you're ready, come outside, let's play catch, let's build with Legos, he's with me. I want my son, I want my daughter with me when they're upset. Sometimes, it's okay in the beginning, send your kids to calm down because you need that space, but ultimately, what I want your kids to know is this. Rob, when you're at your worst and most upset, I can deal with it. I can deal with you at your worst. Because later on, when they become teenagers and they're going through awful, awful things, I want them to be able to come to me as the parent. I don't want teenagers going to Facebook and to their teenage friends because their teenage friends have horrible advice. But if all they ever know is, well, if I go and talk to my parents about that, I'm just going to get a long lecture or they're just going to shake their head at me, I'm not going and telling my parents. Does that make sense? So look, this is, can I come back to you? So I'm building, look, a lot of this is building trust. I believe, and I want to say this before I forget it, that sometimes the nastiest moments, the nastiest interactions can be the biggest opportunities because he was just screaming at his mother and saying awful things. Watch, one other thing. Look, you have every right. You're justified in the moment saying, you don't talk to your mother like that. You go to your room, right? And you're justified. I can't say that there'd be anything wrong at all at yelling at your kid and sending him to his room. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that it doesn't help anything and it doesn't work. Does that make sense? But in that moment, I've got to get out of it taking it personally. We take everything so personally with it that it clouds us. And now I'm thinking about how it's affecting me and how it's affecting my wife instead of thinking about my job is to help you with this. And so when I lead you to a different place and I'm calming you down, now we're together. One other thing. I know I keep saying one other thing, but things keep adding up in my head and I don't want to miss it. The phrase, when you're ready. I love that phrase with strong-willed kids. Now, never say it like this. Hey, son, when you're ready, put your shoes on. We need to go. Never like that. But in an emotional power struggle situation, in a time where it's really emotional, here's what when you're ready does. And see if this makes sense. How many of you by nature are more of a compliant rule follower? Okay, and that's going to be tough for you because when someone tells you to do something, your natural instinct is, you just do it. My natural instinct is to ask why. Like, ours is not to question why, ours but to do and die. That was my dad's parenting philosophy. Charge the light brigade. The why isn't always defiance. Sometimes it's search for context. What do you really want me to do? Because I might have a different way of doing it, and rightly so you think, yeah, I'm not asking for your opinion or your creativity. I just want you to do what I'm gonna do, right? Like, I get that. But for them, it's a search for context of, there might be a different way, more interesting way that I want to do it because I'd like to own this myself. Does that make sense? You don't have to like it or agree with it, but it's the way they're made. And if you see everything through the prism of, well, they're just defiant all the time. I can't do anything with a defiant child. I can do a lot with a frustrated child. I can help a child who feels overwhelmed. I can help a child who wants to own his stuff. You can't really do a lot with a defiant child, except you got to stop doing that or else. But that doesn't work because you've already taken away everything they own. So when I say, when you're ready, see if this makes sense. It almost releases them to do what you want them to do because you're not standing over them telling them. Quick aside, let's talk about this ownership thing, and I'll come back to this thing. Sorry to jump around, but it's on my top of mind. 2 daughters here. I'm going to make you're going to be the mean one. And mean one says something mean to her sister. My natural good response as a parent is, young lady, you need to apologize to your sister right now. No. If you don't apologize, I'm going to take away everything you own. Fine. Sorry, stupid sister. How many of you get that, right? And some of you are like, pretty close to an apology. I'll take it. And you are going to have to grade on a curve with a strong-willed child. Their way of doing things is not always going to look like you want it to look because you're going to be like, oh, that was pretty close, right? My son occasionally, he would come into me and say, okay, Dad. And he'd have a little attitude and I'd be like, for him, that's not really defiant. You know what I mean? And some of your kids are like, when they're a little bit sarcastic, you're like, for you, that's pretty good. You didn't use the F word this time, so I'll take it, right? You're just going to have to weigh that, and you're going to wrestle with it because one child's going to be all perfect and sweet, and the other one's going to be a little bit edgy. So imagine, though, because I want to give kids ownership of their choices. What if I came up to my daughter and said, hey, honey, I know that when you're ready, you know the right thing to do. And then I walk away and drink because that's really, really hard. I don't want you to drink, but you're going to feel like it. Because now it's out of my control. Because sometimes we want to control things because I really want my daughter to learn how to apologize because it's important for her to apologize. And I can force an apology or I can lead a child to contrition. So here's the hard part. She's not going to apologize anytime soon. She's got to process it a little bit. And look, here's another principle. The more you want your kids to do something, the more they're just going to resist. Especially if you have a lot of control issues, which most of us in here do. You live in Northern Virginia. You have to. The more you want it, the more they will just resist. So you're going to be laying in bed with your spouse at night thinking, are we raising a sociopath? Because she hasn't apologized yet. Is she ever going to apologize? Not tonight. Tomorrow morning she will get up and she will do something thoughtful for her sister as an act of contrition. And your appropriate response is, young lady, saw how you did that for your sister. Way to go. Boom. And that's it. And then you're going to have to go drink again. Because she didn't do it the right way. She didn't use the words, I'm sorry. Partly because you wanted it too much. She wants to apologize, but she showed contrition. By the way, when you praise strong-willed kids, very low-key. In fact, I go very matter-of-fact, because here's what we tend to do. Oh, honey, you did such a good job. And you know what it sounds like? We never thought you'd actually make a good choice, and you finally did, so we're going to have a big party. And it creates pressure on the child because what they're thinking is, no, I did. How many of your kids fight you when you praise them? No, I did, because it's pressure. Like, you're going to expect me to do that again. Mine is very low-key. Hey, Rob, you know what was cool? Your sister was irritating you this morning. Usually you hit her 3 times. Today, only twice. Way to go, my friend. Progress, not perfection. Low-key. And then move on. Don't stand there. Rob, I just want to tell you how, it's too much pressure. It's too icky, right? Because then you're like, you did a good job. And he's like, you're a good dad too, right? It's just awkward. So give him the praise, give him the little thing, and then move away. Hey, good job. Like how you handled that. Shows me you're growing up. I like how you did that. You know what? You cleaned up your stuff. Good job. You're a good mom. There's something powerful about those. And I want your husbands, I'm not being sexist, but there's something very powerful about a man's affirmation. Study any 50-plus-year-old guy who never had a good relationship with his father, and they're all longing for it. Look, sometime read the story of Eddie Vedder, the lead singer of Pearl Jam. He's 50-some years old, and almost every song you can hear in it, he never knew his dad. There's a hole in him. So I say that to say, men in here, don't withhold the affirmation. Well, you just got to earn it. No, I'm going to give it, not fake praise, but I'm going to do that. So, back to our story. So now, we're outside. We're playing catch. We're building with Legos. We're both calmed down. Now we can do discipline. Discipline means to teach. Doesn't mean to punish. It doesn't mean to take things away. It literally means to disciple. That's where it comes from, right? Best way to disciple someone is to live it out yourself, but we want to teach. So, here's my conversation, and I really love these words. So, Rob, that little incident with your mom back in the house, so here's what I know. And watch the tone of it. Right? There's no like, we need to talk about your behavior. There's no snottiness. Just teaching you about life. So here's the deal. I know that yelling at your mother is inappropriate. It doesn't happen in our house. Sometimes that phrase is very, very, a very, very solid phrase. I know you know that's wrong. Because here's the opposite that we do. What were you thinking? How many times do I have to tell you? If you're going to use those phrases, just go right to the chase and say, you're an idiot. Because that's what it means, true? How many times do I have to tell you means you're an idiot? True? Very demeaning thing. How many women in here would allow your husband to get away with saying, honey, what were you thinking? You'd be like, I was rethinking my marriage choice. That's what I was thinking. And look, I get it. It's just born out of frustration. So when I say, listen, I know you know that's wrong. Look, your kids know what they're doing is wrong. That's why they lie. How many of your kids lie? They lie because they're ashamed, right? So if anything, the lying is an acknowledgement that they have a conscience. If anything, go to them and say, I know why you lie, because you know what you did was wrong. And so I want to bring them out of that cycle of it instead of shaming them, because they're already ashamed of what they did. Now we make them ashamed of lying, and now it just piles up, and before long, they just get very good at hiding stuff. I know you know that's wrong. Here's what I also know. I know that yelling at your mother always brings dire consequences. You end up losing your stuff. So I'm curious, given that you know it's wrong and that you lose stuff, I'm curious, what would compel you to do that? What's going on? That phrase, I'm curious, I would use that with your teenagers, use it with 2-year-olds, use it with spouses, use it with friends. I'm curious. Because I'm curious says, I want to help you out with that. Typical approach is, it's me against you. What were you thinking? How many times, you know better than to talk to your mother like that, and it becomes me against you. I'm curious says, I want to help you so you don't do that anymore. If you want to go a little bit deeper, it's this. Most of our discipline, if we're honest, is all about us. What were you thinking? I can't believe, like our parents always said, like, now you made me, now I've got to spank you. You made me. I was like, Dad, I didn't make you do this at all. This is your choice. But we always made it about us. If I'm going a little bit deeper, it's this. The reason I want my son to stop yelling at his mother It's not for my wife. She's 40, she can take it and deal with it. I don't need him to behave for me. I want him to stop doing it because it hurts him. And when he yells at his mom, he beats himself up, and it's not good for him. Does that make sense? Getting it out of everything about me and saying, so Rob, listen, I'm curious what was going on. And when you get the I'm curious tone, that's not putting them on the defensive. And what I often found out with my son when we did this is he was struggling at school. Something happened at school. And so he comes home from school, and right away, who is he going to take it out on? Usually mom. Partially because mom's first question is, how was school today? Why don't you put your shoes by the door and get your homework folder out and we'll start to do homework. So moms and dads who are home very quickly after school. If your kids don't like school, don't ask them how their day was. Hey, how was your day at that place where you're on red on the behavior chart and you don't have any friends? How'd it go today, right? There's no good answer to that. A great thing to do, younger kids, I can do a treasure hunt. So you have hide something in the backyard, in the basement, say, hey, hid your favorite Lego fire engine in the backyard. Bet you can't find it in the next 7.5 minutes. Kids love treasure hunts. They like hiding things. Or it can be, hey, if dad's at home, it could be, hey, mom's coming home from work in about 30 minutes. Why don't you hide something in a basement? We'll see if mom can find it when she gets home. They like stuff like that. It gives them some ownership. All day at school, they've been told, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. And when they get home, I want to give them some ownership over something. For older kids, a great conversation starter. Because I guarantee if you have a middle school age boy, here's your conversation. Hey, how was school today? Fine. Have any homework? Nope. Okay, guess I'll see you tomorrow. Right? That's about it. But if you were to greet them with, hey, listen, I'm curious. Something happened at my office today. Something happened at the grocery store. And I'm curious, what would you do if you were in my situation? Now your kids will talk, because how often do we actually ask them for their opinion on? We don't. It's always, okay, you're just at school today where someone told you what to do for 7 straight hours. Now we're going to get home and I'm going to do the same thing for the next 3 hours so we can get homework done because we're too busy and we're overscheduled and we have things to go to. And they shut down. So I draw them into a conversation. Just eases the afternoon or the evening a little bit. So my consequence for my son in this situation was we'd be in the backyard and I'd say, Case, here's the consequence. We're going to role play a little bit because role playing is brutal. Nobody likes it. So I'd say, go in and get your backpack. We're going to go out through the front door and we're going to come back in the house and I'm going to show you 2 or 3 different ways to deal with the frustration at school so that when you get home, you don't take it out on mom and end up losing all your stuff. Does that make sense? So I'm teaching instead of, stop doing that. Why can't you ever control yourself? Now I'm getting to the root of it. And by the way, I've become the trusted parent because if you're struggling with something, just come and hold it. Oh, by the way, this is awesome. A nonverbal, especially for older kids. Rob, if you're ever struggling at school, when I come home from work, just hold up the football. We'll go outside. Because very few middle school kids or boys are going to say, Mom, Dad, I'm really struggling with something. They're not going to do that. But if they come in and grab the football, then I know, oh. So I'm not going to go right away, oh, good, I'm glad you trust me. What are you struggling with? Right? Because that's too much too. Moms, chill. So we play catch, and then I just let it come, right? You're going to have to create some time. By the way, Northern Virginia parents and anybody who's watching, purposefully slow down your lives. Cut out some of the extracurriculars. If I'm planning your day, look, especially if you're home in the afternoon, when your kids get home, you may as well cut out a block of time for meltdown, sibling fights, or something else. It's going to happen every day, right? And we rush them too much. So just say, like, what are we doing this afternoon? I'm just waiting for you to fall apart. And I'm going to help you with it because I've scheduled time for that. Is that not true? I'd rather have to, because I don't have time for this because we've got to go to Taekwondo. I want you to have time for it. I want you to have time to teach them how to deal with their frustration. Can I ask you a question? Why the big exhale? No, but why the big exhale? Just because we kind of do. So I want to give you permission, not that you need it from me. You don't have to do so much. Stop doing, we do way too much. Our parents barely knew us. Is that not true? In the summertime, we came home for dinner. Every day after school, hours at a time. They didn't even know what we were doing. They barely knew our names. They were like, hey, number 3, get in here, right? And do the whole thing. And we turned out just fine because they trusted that life would teach us and we'd figure it out. Modern day parents were trying to calculate everything. Well, if I just get them engaged in this activity and I get this therapist and this person, and they're like, stop trying to fix me. You want a great phrase to start using with your kids? I believe you're capable. Start from the time they're 2, from their 3, your 5-year-old, your 14. I believe you're capable of handling this yourself. We were in, let me just check on time. Good with time. I'm not going to do a long example with that. I just want you to start, do a quick one with ownership. We step back as parents, it gives kids space to step up. I could spend an hour and a half on that, but I can't. I promise you, if you will start stepping back and giving your kids space is really important. They will do what you want them to do. They're just not going to do it the way you want them to do, and it's going to be a little bit ugly at times. So if Rob's my son, it's kind of a funny example, but there's a lot of truth in it. Rob, here's the deal. Morning routine. School bus comes every morning at 7:22 a.m. I have one goal for you in the morning. I want you on the school bus at 7:22. We're in the car at 7:22. I don't care what you look like. I don't care what you smell like. I don't care what's in your stomach. Now, do I really care? Yeah, because I want my kids to eat blueberries and avocado, good healthy fat in the morning, because I want them ready to learn and their brains, I want all that. But how many of you have ever lectured your kids about nutrition and had them said, Mom, I didn't really want to eat healthy food, but after you lectured me again and showed me the food pyramid, which is all wrong anyway, all of a sudden I'm out. They're not. They'll come to it. But look, Rob, my only goal is 7:22 on the school bus. I don't care what you look like, smell like, I don't care what's in your stomach. If you're smart enough to wear the clothes to bed tonight that you're going to wear to school the next day, brilliant. You can sleep until 7:20, roll out of bed. You can grab that Pop-Tart underneath your bed, because I know you hoard food in your bedroom. You run on. You don't even have to have your shoes on, because you can put your shoes on while you're on the bus. At the end of the day, if you make the school bus at 7:22, you know what I'm going to say? Nice job making the bus. Now, do I really think that? I hate the way you make the bus. You look like crap in the morning. I don't know what's in your stomach. And it causes me a lot of anxiety. But if you're honest, that's your own control issues, your own anxiety issues. Moms, it's cold, it's winter. Guarantee you half of you in here this morning probably had a fight with your child because they didn't want to wear a jacket. And some of your kids actually wore shorts to school today. You can't wear shorts. You have to wear a jacket or you're going to catch a cold. And you just lied to your child, because you don't catch a cold from cold weather. It's from germs. The truth is this. I don't want the teachers and parents to think that I'm a bad mother. True? And you got in a long fight with a child who's going to put it, as soon as he gets outside, he's going to take his jacket off. Look, if they get cold at the bus stop, they'll steal another child's jacket. They're very resourceful, and you can praise them for that. But I guarantee you will get more success with eating healthy, with everything else, if you will step back and give them some space to own it. It's just not going to be a pretty process. But over time, you'll be like, good job, my friend. You owned that yourself. Homework time, not mine to do. It's yours to do. I don't care how, look, the phrase is, I don't care how you do it. As long as we accomplish this task within this time period, I'm great. You want to do your homework upside down, hanging off the sofa? Go for it. How many of your kids hang upside down off the sofa? Good. Very quickly, some of my best advice, observe your kids. Watch your kids, observe them. They will tell you everything they need by what they do. Kids will tell you everything they need by what they do. They're hanging off the sofa upside down. So look at your handout if you have one. On the second page, there's a chart with 3 columns. Third column is all about the need for brain stimulation. So your kids' brains are physiologically understimulated. They don't get enough dopamine or blood flow. That's why if they're on medication, it's a stimulant medication. It's why they argue with you. It's why they pick on siblings. Why? We talked about that. It's immediate stimulation. It's why they procrastinate. It's why they struggle with focus and attention. It's why they fidget all the time. It is also why some of your kids will lay off the sofa upside down. Blood flow rushes to the brain, actually helps them concentrate. And the second column is about sensory issues. Some of your kids do better while they're some of your kids spin all the time. They're upside down. Some of your kids like being in confined spaces. So ask a teacher, is it okay if my child does his schoolwork or takes tests sitting underneath his desk? And many of your kids will do much better in school because they got to sit underneath a desk and it looks kind of weird, but your kids don't mind being weird. They like being a little bit different. And as long as it helps them, I don't care how you do it. So come in this afternoon and say, bet you can't do your math homework upside down. And watch, many of your kids will lay off the sofa upside down. It will just irritate you because you want them to sit still at a desk while you stand over them and say, if you would just focus, you would be done in 45 minutes instead of it taking 3 hours. And apparently, that's not motivating. So, relax, watch them get to learn how their brains work. So, let me do 3 examples and then we'll take a quick break. Everybody good so far? Okay. So let's transition. We're going to talk about tools now. In many of our schools, they talk about, by the way, you can kind of glance through that chart. Maybe later I'll go through another column. It's really interesting because you can get to the root of why your kids do things. So I'll do a little bit of that as we go on. So many schools, and we do a lot of teacher training. So if you want us to ever come and train the teachers, just email my son. It's Casey, C-A-S-E-Y, at celebratecolumn.com, and we'll come train the teachers. So many schools use those red, yellow, and green behavior charts. I don't like those things because they tend not to work. And here's many of your kids, here's their experience. School begins at 8 a.m. By 8:05, I'm already on red. And you know what your kids say? If I'm going to be on red today, I may as well just double down and make it a really bad day. Because the truth is, I'm never getting to green. My best day is a faint yellow, maybe. Or I'm good for the whole day, and then the last hour, my medication wears off, and I go right to red. And kids begin to internalize failure and say, I'm dumb, I'm stupid. Look, we would never allow anybody to do this. Rob, if every day before you left your office, you had to stop by your boss's office, and she either gave you a happy face or a sad face, and you came home and your wife's like, seriously, Rob? 3 days in a row with a sad face? No screens for you tonight, right? But we do that to our kids. And it's borderline emotional abuse in the sense that I have many kids go to sleep at night wondering, like, what am I going to get tomorrow? Am I going to be on red today? And they don't want to go to school. And you know what? We judge them. Well, your son blurted out 5 times today. But you didn't notice 13 times when he was dying to share an idea and he held it, because we don't see that. We only see when they mess up. Instead of saying, saw it, you really wanted to, you held it. That's how we do it. We miss that part. So if I'm one of those kids, and I don't want this to offend you, but eventually, you know what I'm going to say? Go F yourself. Go F yourself. Nobody's ever happy with me. You're never happy. Brought my B- up to a B+. Well, if you would have applied yourself a little bit more, you couldn't have got, you know what? Does that make sense? I don't want to offend you, but that's what it feels like inside. And sometimes, one of my workshops last week, I actually said the words, but there's a camera there, so I'm trying to be really good. But sometimes you need to be shocked into that to hear it from the kid's point of view, because we don't get that sometimes. And all we ever see is like, why did you do that in class? You're like, but you missed all the times, right? Like I got a call the other day. Well, my son got in trouble because he pushed other kids, another child in the cafeteria line. And my first thought was, he's got initiative. He's hungry, wants to eat. He's got initiative, right? And I'm not minimizing it, but sometimes we go so like, oh, honey, and then we do those mommy lectures. Honey, you know, it's really important that we respect other, vomit. I hate those mommy lectures. Sorry, it's not meant to be offensive, but it's just we talk so much about, you know, it's really important that they don't listen to that. And I'd rather say, dude, Rob, here's the deal. Here's what I like about it. You were hungry. You're a go-getter. You got initiative, so you push another kid. Let me show you how to button line so you don't get caught. Then you won't get in trouble. Kidding, but not really. I do encourage you, though, with this. Watch, when you get reports of what your child did, always come back to what didn't they do. Okay, he didn't push 3 kids. He didn't push the kid down and stop on his head. He didn't put scissors in the back of his neck like my son would have done. I'm not being funny with that. They didn't. In the scheme of things, we did this stuff when we were kids. Look, all the men in here, we were way worse as kids. Nobody knew what we were doing because we were outside all the time. We were mischievous as heck, weren't we? Yeah, your kids don't even know how to be bad. You're like, seriously, that's all you did? You don't got any street cred, so you pushed a child in the cafeteria line. Big deal. Here's what we did. We put an M80 in their lunch bag, and they brought right a firecracker. And we didn't even get suspended for it. Anyway, just saying, perspective helps sometimes. So, The reason that the consequences in the red, yellow, and green chart don't work is twofold. One, we tend not to get to the root of the issue, and we don't give our kids tools to succeed. We just say stop it, but we don't show them how. So the rest of the time we're going to talk about tools. Let me give you a few examples. So how many of your kids struggle with focus and attention? Very, very common, right? So this is a sensory strip. There's nothing magical about it. It's double-sided tape. And on this side are some little textury strips we got from an arts and crafts store. Science and research say when kids play with textured objects, something tactile, helps the neurotransmitters in the brain connect with each other, helps them concentrate. How many of you have kids with busy hands? Okay, so just saying, hands to yourself, it's not gonna work. You've got to there's a reason they're doing things with their hands, and if we let them use their hands, it will actually help them. So this is a tool. So here's how we use this. Say this is a child's desk at school. I tape this right underneath the child's desk at school. You can be sitting in class all day long. He's playing with this thing. He's fidgeting with it. Fidgeting is really, really helpful. Appropriate fidgeting in a class, it's good for your kids. Teacher always, you can't fidget. I want kids to fidget. Some of you have fidgeted the whole time. You're playing with your hair, you're bouncing legs. Some of you are taking notes as a form of fidgeting, right? It's like doodling while you're on the phone. Don't get freaked out about what everybody tells you. They're usually wrong. Sorry. So look, I can play with this. It doesn't make any noise. I can't whack my classmate in the face with it because it's taped down. It's not a little fidget spinner. It doesn't change the entire school day. But a few times when I was zoning out or I wanted to play with my classmate's face or hair, I had something appropriate to play with. Now, middle school and high school kids can't play with a fidget, can't play with a sensory strip. They'll get beat up for having this. So, sew things in their hoodie, sweatshirt, put things on their shoes and their backpacks. That's why a lot of kids, fidget spinners aren't used a lot in school sometimes, but that's what they do. A lot of kids with their hoodie, sweatshirt, that's why they're chewing on their tassels. Some of your kids chew on their clothes, by the way. Nasty saliva stained thing, and then they want to hug you at the end of the day, and you're like, you're gross. But it's part anxiety, it's part brain stimulation. It's a tool. Let's say impulse control issues. Rob's in my class. Oh, let me do this one really quickly because I love it. How many of your kids do their homework and forget to turn it in? It's pretty common, right? So, real life example. Look, we get on these kids, you've got to remember to do it, you've got to remember to do it. And I talked to this kid once and I said, hey, here's the deal, because I like explaining how their brains work. I'll talk about their issues. It's not an issue, it's just, Rob, here's the deal. Here's how your brain works. You have this great brain and it's made in such a way, it's very, very busy. You're always thinking of ideas. You're a strategy guy. You're a big thinker, strategic thinker. It's why you're always asking why, right? It's why you like to argue, because you're a good thinker. By the way, it's why you're good at chess and checkers, arguing and building with Legos, because you see patterns in things. It's why you know what I'm about to say in an argument at any time. You've got a great brain. What it means, though, is you will probably always struggle with short-term memory, because you're more of a long-term strategic thinker. That means you're going to struggle to remember things in class at times. So it's part of how you're made. So I'm not making an excuse for it, but I'm explaining how his brain's made so he knows there's nothing wrong with you. For every weakness, there's a corresponding strength. We just tend to never point that out in our kids, because our kids as a whole, all of their weaknesses get exposed in school. Hey, you know what your job is in childhood? Your job is to go to school, sit perfectly still, follow verbal directions, memorize information for a test you're never going to use in life, follow up in a single file, never show any leadership skills, and your job is to do that. And by the way, you're not good at any of those things naturally, because your brain is made in a totally different way. When I put you in real life, you're going to be amazing. How many of your kids, you get them outside of school, they're amazing? My neighbors bring them home, even they're going, oh, your son is amazing. He's such a delight to be with. You're like, seriously? And that's a good thing all the time. And that's because you put them in the right situation. By the way, there's no guilt in any of this. But when they're not with you, other adults usually aren't lecturing them, because other adults don't have all that anxiety about their future and they tend to see the good things. So I want you to treat them like they're not your own children. And they'll actually, seriously, if you can step back from that and see the good things that other people see and control your anxiety because they're not living up to their potential. Look, I didn't get into this. It's our control issues and our own anxiety is the issue. Your own anxiety causes you to lecture and get on and see the negative all the time. Again, that's a 2-hour thing we could spend, but we don't have time. So I'd rather spend time. So Rob, here's the deal. You're going to struggle to remember to turn in your homework, but I believe you're capable of using that awesome brain of yours to come up with a solution to it. So here's what this kid did. He went and earned a little bit of money. He bought a scanner for 15 bucks. So here's what he does every day. Comes home, does his homework, scans it into the computer, emails it to his teacher. Boom! He's turned in his homework. Brilliant. But you know what all the other parents and teachers? Well, he needs to learn to remember to turn it in, because one day when he has a job, one day when he's 27, he's going to have a job and he's going to remember. You know why? Because he doesn't remember, he won't get a paycheck and he'll die, right? But he's 9. You can't connect, right? We do that as parents. Well, if he does this now, how is he ever going to be successful? You can't take what a 9 and 14-year-old do and apply it like he's 37. Does that make sense? That's where we get in trouble a lot of times. Instead, watch the opportunity that we miss. Everybody gets on this kid because he forgets, instead of saying, that was brilliant. Because you have enough self-awareness to know you're weak in that area, strong in that area. You used your creativity and came up with a solution. Now you can go to bed at night knowing your homework was turned in. You've got a timestamp on it. You even challenge your teacher, and your teacher challenged you to say, Rob, bet you can't be the first one to send in your math homework today. And now we turn it into a positive instead of everything always being freaking negative with these kids. Does that make sense? So here's a tool. Rob is, I'm doing on time. Rob's in my class, 3rd grade, 8th grade, 11th grade, doesn't matter. I know that after about 17 minutes, Rob's going to get up and start walking around the class. That's what he does. So my typical response is, Rob, hey, 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. Look. By the way, there's research that shows kids often listen best when not looking an adult in the eyes. For the men in here, chill with the eye contacting. Look at me when I'm talking to you, right? Relax with that. Model it for them. Your kids will grow up and look people in the eyes. They're not disrespecting you. Sometimes your kids, the only time they ever get eye contact is when? Negative. Because we never say, hey, look at me. Just made a good choice. I'm proud of you. Right? And they never do that. But I want you to do that tonight. Freak your teenage son out and be like, hey, you know what I was thinking about? Sing it. And I do mean start writing him notes. I want you to start noticing the positive stuff and building these kids up. Not fake praise, but very specific things. Hey, when you were down at the Henderson's house the other day, Mr. Henderson called and said, you were really, really helpful. Shows me you're responsible. Now, inside you're like, but you have never been responsible in our actual home. But you can't, but it's never worked. How old's your son or daughter? 15. It hasn't worked till age 15. It's probably not going to be like, when he's 16, I think he's going to start getting it, right? So I want to start sowing little seeds in them of like, I've seen it. Listen, I've seen you. You are driven, you're motivated, you're goal-oriented, you're persistent. You know when I see that? When you play video games. Because your sole goal in life is to get to the next level of your video game. You don't eat, you don't sleep, you don't pee, you don't do your homework, you don't do anything until you get to the next level. And what that tells me is, when you care about something, son, you're amazing. Just you don't care about anything that I care about. And that's the problem. So Rob's in my class, so I'm going to pull him aside at recess and say, Rob, listen, I could really use your help. How many of you know magical words for strong-willed kids? They love helping other adults. I need your help. When I teach in class, my mouth gets dry, and I know you need to move. I like addressing kids' issues. You don't have to put a label. It's clear you have ADHD. I don't have to say that. I just need to know he struggles with short-term memory. I know that he struggles because he needs to move a little bit. I'm going to give you an opportunity to move. You and I are going to have a secret signal. When I'm teaching and I do this or this, here's what I want you to do. You get up out of your seat, you come up to my desk, and you grab my water bottle. Take you to the back of the room. You're going to refill it. Bring it back up, sit on my desk, and then you sit down. You don't get to talk to anybody. You're not going to distract anybody. You're going to be Mr. Invisible. You up for that? Little kids love that. Again, middle school, high school kids will get beat up for being Mr. Invisible. So we leave that out. Notice, though, the tone of voice. I can be very direct with strong-willed kids as long as it's not negative. How many of your kids, the first day of school, they encountered a little bit of negativity from a teacher and came home and said, she doesn't like me, she's mean. They will shut down for negativity. They don't do negativity. But I can say, listen, you're not going to talk to anybody, you're not going to distract anybody. But if I do this tone, you know what? Every time I give you a job to do, you end up, and as soon as you go there, I'm done with you. So, I'm teaching in class, he's starting to move, it's been a little while, I give him a little signal, he comes up, grabs the water bottle, takes it back, refills it, brings it back up, sets it on my desk, and I get to end that little scene with, hey, good job, thank you. Here's why I like it. It only took 22 seconds. I gave him 22 seconds of appropriate movement within my boundaries. It was a very specific job. I didn't say, hey, little guy with an ADD brain, if you get bored in my class, just run around. It was specific. It's concrete. He can hold it. He can touch it. With my little OCD kids, I used to put a red magic marker line on the water bottle and say, I need this refilled exactly to that red line. Little OCD kids would be in the back, like pouring it out, refilling it. You know how comforting that is? It feels really good. How many of you are like that? How many of you at night, when life feels like it's out of control, you go to your kitchen and clean your kitchen sink? Anybody do that? You're like, the rest of my life is out of control. My sink is spotless. So think about when your kids are upset, what is their kitchen sink? What is that thing that grounds them? It can be building with something. For a kid in class, he's back there thinking, I didn't get invited to the school birthday party. I don't always know what page of the book I'm supposed to be on, but I'm good at doing my job. And it brings them back. If you're taking notes, I'd write this one down. It's the top 3. I just created a success. For some of your kids, you're going to have to rebuild them from the ground up and start creating successes. The truth is, for many of your kids, if you wait long enough, they're going to mess up. Eventually, Rob's going to do something wrong in my classroom that I don't like, blurt out, whatever. I know that. So I proactively know that, so I'm going to give him a tool to create a success. Because if I create enough successes, they start to get confident. Does that make sense? One of the reasons your kids can't own their stuff and they blame other people, it takes a lot of confidence to look at someone and say, yeah, I just messed up. I didn't do my homework, I lied to you. You know how much confidence that takes? Most of us as adults can't do that. We make up all kinds, I was late, I was running busy. No, I've learned in my life, this is awesome. I meet my friend Mike all the time for lunch. Hey Mike, here's the deal, I was late, you know why? Because I was selfish. I was trying to get some extra things done at home, and I valued and prioritized my time over yours, and I apologize because it was selfish for me to be late. You know what he says? He's like, dude, I didn't really care. I was like, I know, I'm just trying to be honest. So, but that's so liberating. Rather than like, oh, traffic was bad, I got stuck at the bridge, and we all lie, instead of just owning it and saying, I put myself ahead of you. So how are kids who have zero confidence, how are they supposed to own their stuff? How am I supposed to be nice to my sister when she's all perfect and the grandparents make a big deal of her because she's on the freaking honor roll, right? And the bumper sticker you have for me is my son didn't get suspended last semester, right? And you're like, good job. When I start feeling good about myself, it's much easier for me to be gracious toward other people. True? So you've got to build that up. So next week when Rob comes in, I say, Rob, this week I believe you're capable of sitting for 23 minutes before you need to move. So I gradually move him up. I want progress, not perfection. One other example, and then we'll take a break. Everybody good? How many of your kids struggle with anxiety of some kind? Okay, look at your chart if you don't mind. First column. For lack of a better word, lack of a technical term, in the first column, it's about kids with busy brains. How many of your kids have busy brains? Always think it's always running. So here's what it feels like. My brain does not have a lot of organization in it. It's always free-flowing, and I believe I'm made that way on purpose. There are advantages to that. There are disadvantages. It doesn't always feel like I'm in control of myself. So what's my natural impulse? To control other people and situations. So on your chart, let me see your chart really quickly if you don't mind. Just disorganized, forgetful, makes sense to me. Executive function, following directions is hard. Difficulty with changes in plans. Why? Because I had an idea of how I wanted it. I've been picturing it that way, and you just changed it. These kids are kind of fragile because they have an idea of how they want it. We're saying, it's not a big deal. Oh, yes, it is. I've been planning this, right? Like I've got an image in my head of what this little Lego project is going to look like. And you just said, put away the Legos, we need to go. No! Because I've got a vision for it and I'm invested in it, and now I have to go to a stupid doctor's appointment, or you have to take my sister somewhere. I hate my sister. That's where it's coming from. Does that make sense? I'm not making an excuse for it, but that's where it's coming from. Look, they have difficulty being corrected. So if you're doing homework, by the way, space is important. So they do a little math worksheet. A great little thing to say is, hey, listen, I just saw your worksheet. Good job. You may want to check number 9, number 14, number 17. I've got to go get started on dinner. I'm going to go do laundry. If you need some help, come grab me later. They can take it a lot better than, I need to sit down. I'm going to show you all the things you did wrong. Right? How many of us want our boss to come in our cubicle and say, listen, I'm just going to stand behind you in the cubicle while you correct your proposal? Nobody wants you standing over, but when I give them some space, right, it's really important. Kids who are easily overwhelmed, they're slow process, difficulty writing, bossy and controlling. How many of your kids are like that, right? It's just I don't feel like I'm in control of myself. They'll dominate conversations. They talk about the same thing over and over and over again. They wear the same clothes. They eat the same food. Some of it, by the way, I just realized in the last couple years why I do that myself. Because it's smart. It doesn't, look, I'm an idea guy. It doesn't make sense for me to put a lot of energy in trying to remember things and details, because all the energy I put into that means I don't have energy, is not being put into ideas and strategy. Does that make sense? We're made in different ways. So I have all these workarounds. I keep notes on my phone, notes on the hotel room floor. I do things so that I don't have to. I mechanize my life. When I'm home, I eat the same thing every morning for breakfast. My routine is very much the same. Get up, I go to the gym, go to the bank, go to the post office, I come home by a certain time every day. I'm very, very like that because then I don't have to think about it. Does that make sense? It doesn't mean it's right or wrong, but that's what's happening with their kids. Anyway, I don't have time to go through all that. Thank you. Anxiety comes from there. Anxiety is caused by unknowns, things I can't control. So here's the example, and then we'll take a break. I say, hey, Rob, you want to do Taekwondo this spring? He's like, sure, Dad, sign me up. Come home a week later. Rob, come on, gotta go, Taekwondo. What do we get? Dad, you know, my stomach's kind of upset. Can we just go stay home tonight? I promise I'll go next week. No, here's what we're going to do. If we leave right now, we'll stop at McDonald's and get a Happy Meal. Everybody will be happy. Bribery never works. So then we do this thing. You know what? I paid $135 for that class. Your little butt's going to be there. As if he's going to say, Mom, I didn't really want to go, but now that I know how much it cost you, I'm motivated. They don't care. So the only thing I've left is I'm going to grab him by the arm. I'm going to fight him the whole way. When I was a kid, I didn't get to do Taekwondo extracurriculars. I worked hard for that $135. This kid's starving in Africa. A little bit of gratitude would be nice. And we throw out everything we can, shove them in the head, in the car with a hand over the head like they do on those cop shows. And along the way, your child's going to say, no, I'm not going. Taekwondo's stupid. You're stupid. How many of you ever get that? Right? And so what happens? We react to it immediately. You know what? You are going to get your little butt in the car right now. And you be a good Christian parent. You're going to drop the F-bomb on your child right there. How many of you have done that before, right? And all the other neighbors are watching like, oh, we thought she was a good mom. She's using the F-bomb on her 4-year-old, right? And I get that. It's what forgiveness is for. Stop. When we react to it, what happens? It escalates every time. I'm not going. You will get in the car. And now you're outside, right? And all your neighbors like, oh, we thought they were a nice Northern Virginia family. Apparently not. And it escalates. So we miss it. We miss it in the moment because we hear defiance and disrespect, the outward behavior, but the inner thing that's happening is anxiety. Anxiety is caused by unknowns, things you can't control. When I said, Rob, Taekwondo, here's what triggers in his brain, all the unknowns. Mom, have you ever been to Taekwondo before? Is it going to be really loud in there because I'm sensitive to noise? And is the instructor going to be nice to me? And what about the other kids? I get along better with older kids and adults and little kids and animals, but kids my own age, I struggle to connect with them. What if they pick on me and I don't get along with them? And I have trouble with multiple steps and auditory processing issues. What if I'm not good at Taekwondo and I want to quit? Is Dad going to make me quit? No. You know what they're really saying when they say, I hate you? Bring on the punishment. Spank me, take away my stuff, send me to my room. I'm good with that. Bring it. But do not make me go to this new place because there are too many unknowns and I might get rejected by other people again and I might fail and I'd rather get a spanking or take. Does that make sense? So when you're away from it, you can see that and be like, oh. So remember we said the big, nastiest moments, interactions are the biggest opportunities. So here's the opportunity and how we can handle it differently. I don't know if I said it before, but my job as a parent is to give my child wisdom and tools. Wisdom and tools. So when I hear the resistance, my first thought has to go from changing his behavior, I've got to change mine. So I step back and I start to search for wisdom. Why is my son freaking out? All I asked him to do is go to a 45-minute class. It's not that big a deal. And then I get wisdom. It's anxiety. Now when I look down at my child and I say, Rob, I know what's going on. You're nervous. You're going to a new place. You should be a little bit nervous. Stomach a little bit upset. Do you know how calming that is? You know how it is for you as a spouse when your spouse says saying, I don't know why you're getting so upset. You should just be grateful that you get to stay home from the kids, right? And you're like, oh, really? Where are you sleeping tonight? You know how calming it is for someone to look at you and say, this doesn't sound like you. It sounds like you're overwhelmed. How can I help? Rather than, I don't know why you're freaking out. Does that make sense? So when I look down and say, Rob, I know what's going on, because there's two options. Either you're a defiant little snot that makes my life difficult, say that stuff. Why do you have to make everything so difficult? Now I look down and say, I know what's going on. You're nervous. Because look, anxiety lives in the stomach. When I have to give a new presentation at the office, stomach gets a little bit upset. When I have to talk to my mother-in-law, stomach gets really upset because that's anxiety. I don't want to use the mommy sympathy voice. Oh, honey, I know it's really hard. Don't do that. That feeds it, makes it worse. Mine is even matter of fact, I know, nervous. Look, I want you to talk to your kids and say, of course you're struggling with that assignment. You came home, it's like 18 steps. You should feel overwhelmed. Does that make sense? That's better than, it's not a big deal. I know you can do it. It is a big deal, but I believe you're capable and we'll break it down into steps. Does that make sense? That alone will change so many things. Of course you're nervous. Now here's the tool, because I believe you can go. The tool is this. In order to count the unknowns of anxiety, I always want you, wherever you go, ask another adult, wherever you go, to give your child a very specific job to do. If I take Rob a few days ahead of time to Taekwondo play, say, hey, Mr. Taekwondo, son's going to be in your class next week. Could you give him a job to do? Loves helping other people. Taekwondo guy says, Rob, psyched you're in my class. Listen, I need you here 5 minutes early every week because I need your help. You're going to help me rearrange the mat, set up the cones, get ready for class. You up for that? Most of your kids to other people? Yes, sir. So when I come home next week, Rob, Taekwondo, gotta go. What triggers in his brain, not the unknowns. Mom, Dad, remember, Taekwondo guy needs my help. He said be there 5 minutes early, so we have to leave like 3.5 hours early so we're not late. Get there a little bit early. For some of your kids, if you have the time, go a few days ahead of time when they don't have to participate and they can literally just sit in that room. If any of you, this is a cool church. It's a church, but it's a fitness center. When I came in last night, even this morning, there's so many people. That unnerves me a little bit. And I'm 52. It's too much noise. It's too much chaos. Can you imagine being 5 or 9 and there are all these people and you don't know what you're supposed to do? So if the first time they go to a class, all they do is sit on the sidelines and watch it, for your kids, that's good. I'd say, bingo. We'll take a snack. You can watch it. Next week, now that they've eliminated the unknowns, they know what it smells like and sounds like, they'll go in and participate. But wherever your kids go, whether it's school, extracurricular activity, church even, some of your kids at Sunday school don't want to go. If the teacher says, we're doing Noah's Ark next week. Could you build me some things like a Noah's Ark thing or bring in some things that you've colored, help the other kids? That will help them get there. Does that make sense? So here's what I want to do. Quick break. 3 tools to give you as we take a break. There are restrooms out there and down the hall a little bit, and then even down there, or men can just go outside. We're just going to take a short break. If you're interested, New Life, the host of the church, has, we've got some snacks, I think. And we also they've got information on different things going on here at the church, which is kind of cool. And I think we're going to hand out some cards because they're giving away some door prizes this morning, which is really cool. They're giving away someone else will raise your child for a year. That was something, I'm kidding, that we can do.
Did everybody get a card? If you didn't get a card, I'll
Yeah, do that while I'm doing my little thing.
fill out the card if you're interested in participating in the raffle.
It's just a free raffle.
Parents' night out.
Yeah, free parents' night out, and you can drop your child off and come back a week later. It's really awesome. Kidding. So if you're interested, we have a free newsletter. Casey back there, the big tall kid, is my son. You sign up there. If you're interested, I'll do this very quickly. We have audio CDs. I've stuck with audio CDs for a long time for this reason. You get these, you get them physically, but as downloads, so you can share them with your judgmental parents, with your friends, with teachers, whoever. I've stuck with audio because you have to listen to stuff again and again and again. I've done this for 15 years. People come to workshops and they take notes and like, I'm going to change. And 3 days later, we get all these emails saying, I lasted about 15 seconds this morning before I started screaming at my child. Trick, I want your kids to listen to these, and here's a trick. Tell your strong-willed child, hey, parenting secrets to get you to behave, you don't get to listen. And immediately your strong-willed child will download it to their iPhone, and they will listen, but here's your warning. They're going to hold you accountable and say, Mom, you're not doing it the way Calm Guy said. You're going to be like, seriously, you're only 5. But it's cool. So here's what we put together. There's one on stopping power struggles with a strong-willed child. I really do like kids listening to this one because we explain what's going on and they feel very understood. My son is on this one with me, really understanding the heart of it. There's one on discipline. I'll do some of this after the break. 30 different behaviors, 2 different themes. Teaching impulse control and getting kids to listen the first time. I'll do some examples. Stop defiance, disrespect, and meltdowns. That last example of the big power struggle and it gets emotional. How do you de-escalate? We try to give you the words and actions to take. The most popular one we've ever done is called Straight Talk for Kids. This is my son's. He recorded this for kids directly because he goes through the struggles he had as a child and how he learned how to control his emotions. He teaches kids, if you learn how to control yourself, your parents won't have to. It's kind of cool. Straight Talk for Stressed Out Moms. Self-explanatory. Try to make this like 10 therapy sessions in one. How to get control of your inner life. Say no to other people. Take care of yourself instead of trying to make everybody happy. We just did one for dads for 2 reasons. Our dads never taught us this stuff, and men don't listen to their wives. But if we read something on the internet where a stranger tells us, then it's true, and we believe it. So it's my son and I talking directly to men, short and sweet. We don't talk about our emotions, so it's safe for engineers. There's one for kids, say 2 to 7, so for your toddlers and little ones, 85 common situations. One for motivating kids. This is better for kids, say like 5th grade and up. Internal motivation. Final one. ADHD University. Your kids don't have to have a diagnosis. It's a quick way of saying kids who struggle with focus, attention, executive function, social skills, organization, everything on that chart. Sensory issues we go through in great detail, most comprehensive thing we have. So here's the deal with the CDs. You don't have to buy them today, but do not buy them directly off our website. Our stuff is expensive. On the website, these are typically $97 or $197 each. For the skeptical men out there and women, these only cost me $1.22 to produce. I make them expensive for 2 reasons. One, self-respect. My stuff is really good. It'll change your family life, and I want people to respect it. Second reason, I want you to have investment and ownership in it. In the early days when we lived here, I had a big heart, and I was like, I'm going to save the world. And I sold everything really cheaply, and guess what? Nobody listened because they assumed it was crap. Sorry, they just did. And so when I started raising the prices, we got all these testimonials because men said, we spend a lot of money on that, maybe we should do it. There's something to that. That said, we're doing a special. Your handout's wrong. We do different pricing in different places depending on whether we like the people or not. I'm kidding, but not really. Sometimes we charge a little bit more. So here's the deal. Your handout says get any 5 sets for $4.97. We're doing any 5 sets for $197. So you can cross out the 4, make it a 1. It's still $200. I know that's an investment. For me, it's 2 trips to a therapist's office, but you walk away with about 15 hours worth of practical strategies. There's a marriage mentoring program down there. At the very bottom, it says, get everything we own. We're doing that one. I think it's 10 or 11 programs. You get a sibling one, stop screen, fights over screens on the, you get them as downloads. Marriage mentoring, we're doing that for $297. If you look on our website right now, I think that's at $497 or $597. So anyway, it's a pretty good deal. If you need help financially, see Casey. You can do it in payments. He'll help you out. If you get anything, he'll give you the little Got Calm bag, so it'll remind you not to freak out on your kids. So here's what I want to do. I want you to be able to move a little bit. It's 11:33. Why don't we take about a 5.5 or 6 minute break? When we come back, I'm going to do example of relentless arguer. We will do internal motivation. We will do getting kids to listen to you and follow directions. If you want to talk to me, they're going to cut my mic in a second. You can come up and I'll answer questions. But start moving. I just want you to move for 5 or 6 minutes, and then we'll take it down the home stretch. And if you, and go ahead and turn in your little cards. By the way, thank you to the church, and thank you for they're doing a live streaming, and I didn't participate that well because I should be up on stage where you can actually see me. And they told me that down here, I'm just more comfortable, so at home you probably can't see me, and that's fine because I prefer that. But if you need help and you're home watching this, email my son, Casey, C-A-S-E-Y, at Celebrate Calm, and he'll help you with all this stuff too. So anyway, if you have questions, come on up and they'll cut my mic. Okay, a couple things as we're coming back for toddlers, just in case I forget. Little guys, doing directions, make things a challenge, make them difficult. Oftentimes with little kids, I put a patch over their eye or say, we're going to do your chores backwards, whatever it is. Just do things in a little bit different way with them. Little kids who are very sensory, climbing into things, I like creating an obstacle course. Make a little obstacle course in the backyard, in the basement. Things they have to crawl under, crawl through. It's very, very calming and settling for them. This is not meant to be funny, but it will work with most of your kids. Guarantee if you wake up your kid, one of your strong-willed children tomorrow morning and say, hey, guess where you're eating breakfast this morning? I hid it outside in the obstacle course and you've got to find it. How many of your kids would love something like that? Now they're outside eating with the chipmunks and they're not around you. So bonus for you. If it's too cold, hide something in the basement. Don't be afraid to do things differently. By the way, dinner time, don't be afraid to do it differently. Everybody wants to leave it to Beaver dinner, but if every night is, Jacob, you need to sit at the table. We're going to enjoy dinner together as a family. Apparently we're not, right? Feed the little kids early. All they eat is mac and cheese and chicken nuggets anyway, so feed them early. And then you and your spouse enjoy a nice dinner together without dad getting upset because your kids get, does that make sense? You don't have to bond with your kids only at dinner time. Eat dinner, enjoy it with your spouse, and then after dinner, bond with the child when they don't have to perform, right? Does that make sense? For lack of a better word, do what works, right? Don't let people can judge you all they want. Do what works for your family. You're going to find yourself doing weird stuff like homework in the closet, like hanging upside down and doing stuff, and people are going to judge you. Who cares? It's your family. Do what's right for your family. So, relentless arguer example. Some of your kids are too young for this, but you can apply the principle. So, here's the example. Rob comes home from school, I come home from work, and Rob's like, Dad, you have to take me to GameStop. I want that new video game. And my response will always be, not going to happen tonight, no. Short and sweet. Don't do a long explanation. Well, buddy, I'd love to take you, but your sister has soccer practice. And he's going to say, oh, sister can walk to soccer practice while you take me to GameStop, right? There's always an argument. No. So he's going to come after me because that's what they do, and they're going to start arguing. Here's one example. I may say, hey, Rob, listen. I've seen this movie play out in our home like 143 times this month. Here's how the movie started. Today at school, all day long, I know what you were doing. You weren't paying attention in class. You were thinking about that new video game because it's really cool and all your friends have it and you don't because your friends have parents who don't love their children because they just buy them whatever they want. You guys know this. Don't buy them stuff. Say no to them. They don't have to have, just because their friends have the iPhone and you're Amish and cut off electricity, one day they will thank you for having the courage. Look, I don't have time to do a screens thing. You know what I'm coming down to with screens? Do what you know is right. You know what you need to do, right? We're just afraid to do it. I know, but my child's going to be really upset. Let me do this quick one. For some of you with teenagers or maybe younger, it may sound like this. Rob, here's the deal. I gave you this thing when you were too young. You can't handle it. It's controlling your life. It changes your moods. It's changing your interactions with us. It was like giving you cocaine when you were young and just saying, look, just do a little bit of blow after school. It'll take the edge off, but control it. Seriously, they can't control it. Is that not true? And so if you really want to own something, sometimes say, it was my own immaturity, it was my own weakness, or it was my own poor decision to give you this thing before you could handle it. And what I've seen is it's destroying our family life. So this weekend, gone, taking it back. My assumption is you're going to be very angry at me and very upset, and you should be, and I'm okay with that. You may not talk to me for the next month. That would actually be quite a joy for me, and I'm kidding. No, you're going to be upset and you're going to be frustrated with me, and I'm okay with that. Because what I want you to know is this. I will always do what is best for you, even if it's uncomfortable for me. Right? Some of your kids, it's going to be miserable, but that just shows you, like I always get like, but if I take some video games away, my son's going to get furious and even violent. That's a sign there's something really, really wrong, right? And so you're just going to have to put up, right? I mean, that's like, okay, so let's just, right? So that's a sign where you're just going to have to do it and put up with the hell that comes your way, because I guarantee you 100%, it may not be this week or next month or next year, but at some point they're going to look at you and say, God, you did that for me. Kids already know that they're hooked on this stuff. Would you want to grow up being a girl today with Instagram account knowing my whole day is dependent on my friend got 14 likes on her picture, I only got 8? What's brutal? And you know what I think the problem, and we always get on our kids, and then there's no guilt and blame in this. I think it's us. We're the ones who did this. We have to have the courage to say, what's best for you? Even I know, but they're going to be left out. Takes the pressure off. I'll give you another one.
My kids don't have it. She's 13. We don't have a video game console. She's not.
You're weird, and I love you for it.
Guess what? I survived without it. She can too.
I like that. So I'll give you an idea, though, because I don't want to dismiss some of you. And look, I'm not making a blanket statement, but some of you are going to have, say, a teenage daughter, teenage son, and they all want to stay up and have the phone in their bedroom because they want to text till 11 o'clock, midnight, and you're going to be like, nope, phone needs to be on the counter at 9 o'clock, whatever time, whatever. So when they're like, but I feel like I'm missing out, don't dismiss it, because it is a big deal to them. So my talk with my daughter might be, honey, I get it. All of your friends are up till midnight texting, so when you go into school tomorrow, you feel like you're left out. And I get that. That would be brutally difficult. Don't dismiss it. But here's the thing. I'd be a horrible parent if I allowed you to take your phone to your room. They ought to take me away. I'm not going to do it. But here's what you're really after, I think, which is to have connection with your friends. So this is how kids do it, but I'm going to give you a different idea. And you'll scoff at this a little bit, but I've seen it work in many cases. Friday night, Saturday night, what we did with Casey is I made Friday night video game night at my house. I hate video games. But boys would come if I wanted people at my house. Why? Because I don't trust other parents. Other parents are horrible. I don't want my son at some other parent. So they come to my house. You know what I'm saying. So they come to my house and they play video games for a while. And then I'd come in one night and I'd say, guys, you guys want to play with some, we'll play some war games, like with some airsoft guns. Some of you don't like that, whatever. But I make sure they had goggles and they're like, really? We get to go outside and like shoot each other? I was like, have at it, as long as we're safe. I'll pull up my old 4Runner and we'll come up in the cul-de-sac and you guys can ambush the car. It'll be awesome. It was a way to get them off video games, right? Next week, I was like, hey, when you're done playing with your video games, if you want, we can go to the Ashburn Ice Rink and skate. There are girls there. You guys are all socially awkward, so you don't have a shot, but at least you could dream, right? And so, I didn't say that, but you think it. And I took them to that, and I showed them an alternative. Does that make sense? But here's one we've done with girls sometimes. Saturday night, if you want to invite 2 or 3 of your girlfriends over, we do movie night in the basement. You're not going to have your phones down there. We do movie night. Or here's another idea. I know there's a retirement center where all these older people are and they're very lonely. And I thought if your friends want to come over, we could bake some things, make some things, and take them down to the retirement center and do that. And they're like, oh, that's not fun. I guarantee you get 2 or 3 girls going and serving some older people and taking things to them. Those older people are going to gravitate because they love the energy of teenage girls, and they're going to talk. And you know what your kids are going to experience for themselves? Human connection. Because all those old people are going to be like, will you come back next week? Will you come back because we're lonely here? We want to talk and you guys are good cooks. And once they feel the connection, there's a little bit of mission and mentor. I want kids around. Does that make sense? Am I saying they're going to be like, thanks so much for taking our screens away and taking us to work with all the old people? I'm not saying that's always going to work, but it's an idea. So Rob comes home, take me to a video game store. My response is not going to happen. So he's going to come after me. So here's where the movie goes. So here's what you're doing all day at school. You were thinking of all the objections to me that I was going to have to taking you to GameStop, because you're a really good critical thinker. You're a really good thinker. One day a company's going to pay you a lot of money for that. I love that skill, but we're not going to GameStop. So the movie unfolds. You come home. I come home. You demand that I take you to GameStop. I don't do demanding, so I say no. You don't give up, so you argue with me. I walk away. You follow me. I go upstairs into my bedroom. I double lock my bedroom doors. You go outside, climb up through the second floor window, and you come in and keep going. You know why? You've got determination, you've got persistence. And a Harvard study said, number 1 quality necessary for success in life is not good grades and not good behavior, pig-headed determination, and you have it when you want something. And I love that quality. We're not going to GameStop. You could skip right to this part, but here's the deal, son. Here's how the movie ends every single time in our home. I say no, you keep going, you keep arguing, you end up saying disrespectful, inappropriate things to me. You end up not only not going to GameStop, but you lose all your other video games and you end up in tears. That's how it ends every single time, and I don't think you want that to happen. You kind of hear that. I'm advocating for him. Rob, I know what you want, but it never works this way. So I'm going to give you ownership. You get to rewrite the ending to this movie. I've got to go get started on dinner. I'm going to walk the dog. There's a little bit of movement and giving him some space. Here's what I know about you. You've got a great brain. You are very persistent. I know that you have a big heart toward other people, not me. You've got a big heart. And I know that you love money. How many of your kids love money? Not in a bad way. They're born entrepreneurs. Yes, I want him starting a little business because I guarantee he's going to make money and he'll give a lot of it away because they have big hearts. If you want to come and use that great brain of yours instead of arguing with me, if you want to use that, I bet we could come up with 3 different ways to earn some money. Maybe on Saturday morning you go down and get that video game, pay for it yourself. See, now I'm going from, why can't you ever take no for an answer? Why do you always have to argue with me to, look, I know what's going on. I can see how this ends, and I want to let you know there's an alternative here. Can you hear the tone of voice? I'm not whining, why do you have to make everything so, just let you know this is how I roll. This is how it's about to end. Here's a different way for it to work. I'll give you some space. You come tell me if you want to do it this way. Or you can just end up in tears and lose all your stuff. I'm really good either way. And that's how my discipline is. I'm good either way. You get to choose what you want to do. I'm good either way. Quick discipline thing. Second time. This is a tough discipline approach to balance all this other stuff. So Rob, here's the deal. Legos are on the floor right now. If your Legos are not picked up in the next 12 minutes, I promise you, I will go to the backyard, I will build a bonfire, and I will burn your Legos. Choice is up to you. And then I walk away. Now I love this. Why? Because men are men of few words. Now all the men in here, don't go home and say, that guy said we get to burn stuff, right? It's not what I said. Watch your expectations, but here's what I do like about the general approach. And in our curriculum, you'll hear us say, I will tell you one time, and then I will take action. Because as modern day parents, we bludgeon our kids to death with words. If you don't do that, and they just tune us out, and then we never do anything. Now, got to make sure that this is a little extreme, but I like the approach. Why? Because this, Rob, listen, here's the deal. I can't always tell you what you are going to do. You have a choice. I can always tell you what I'm going to do. And I make it in the form of a promise because I keep my promises, right? This is personal integrity. So the beautiful part is he walks away for 12 minutes and what do the kids see? Smoke coming up from the backyard. Here's what kids learn very quickly. Oh crap, he meant it. They don't care about it. Strong-willed kids only care what you do. And it can be very low-key, and there's nothing personal. You know what, Rob? You never pick up after yourself. How are you ever going to do it? Your bedroom's such a mess. You know what? There's a reason there's a bedroom door. Keep it closed. Your kids are messy. Who cares? When they grow up, my son was a slob. Guess what? He has his own apartment now. He's spotless. You know why? Because he has a girlfriend he wants to impress. He's motivated, right? That's just how it works. Well, if they have a messy when they're a kid, no, it doesn't relate all the time. Now, if you're a total slob, they're probably going to grow up and be slobby like that because that's what they grew up with. If you're watching 3 hours of Jerry Springer every day, your kids are going to grow up and go to jail. But you're not watching Jerry Springer. You watch educational shows and you read books and you're disciplined and you work hard and you're giving and kind to other people. And your kids see that and you eat healthy, they're going to eat healthy. Watch with the food stuff. Most of you in here didn't start eating healthy till you're like 40, right? You're like, we were awful. How many of us as kids, we ate Fruit Loops and Lucky Charms, like pounded it. And now we're okay, right? You know what I mean? We do. There you go. I'm going to have Lucky Charms for you tonight, Rob. There you go. So, syrup all over everything. We were horrible till we were like 40, and now, chill. I do want you to address nutrition, though. It is important with your kids. More fat and protein, less carbs, all that stuff. By the way, some of your kids, it's an anxiety issue. If all they eat is simple carbs, check out anxiety issues, and sometimes it's a gut issue. So see a weirdo alternative doctor, because sometimes they get to the stuff inside. They're just weird, so just watch. But they get to real stuff because Western doctors don't always do this stuff. Anyway, so where was I? Oh, so I like it because, look, Rob, here's the deal. I told you to do this, and I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. If he doesn't do it, I'm just going to do what I said. Really? Seriously? Just keeping my promise to you because I want you to always know when I tell you something, I mean it. Does that make sense? Take the drama out of it, all the drama out of it. I'm going to do an example. I've got 5 minutes left. It may take like 8 minutes, but I'm going to do it. How many of you were raised to believe kids are supposed to be immediately obedient? How many of you get, okay, good. How many of you, it's a religious kind of a Christian thing? Okay, let me address this. This is good, and this is for everybody. It's not just religion. Anyway, I don't believe in immediate obedience, and I'll tell you why. So, when my son was young, this is what it was supposed to sound like in our home. Casey, I want you to do these 3 chores right now. And his appropriate response was, why, of course, Father. I wasn't having a good time playing video games or texting. I was hoping you'd give me additional chores so I could learn the value of hard work and responsibility. Sir, that's what I wanted to hear. You're never going to hear that from the strong-willed child, ever. Instead, here's what you're going to hear. Ugh. Chores are stupid. I don't do my chores. My sister didn't. Why don't you do the chores? You will not only do the chores, you will do it with a smile on your face. We get really controlling. Look, I don't care if my kids are happy. If my son's unhappy raking the leaves, I'll pop some popcorn, pull up a lawn chair, and watch him be miserable. I don't need you to be happy. I just want you to do the chore. True? Some of you were raised with that thing of like, obey right away, all the way with a happy heart. Bomb it. I hate that. I don't always have a good attitude, right? It's so much pressure on people. So here's what I started doing with my son and with kids. Rob, here's the deal. It's 3:45 in the afternoon. I want these 3 chores done by 7 o'clock tonight. Don't care how you get them done, when you get them done. 3 chores, 7 o'clock, up to you. If you need some help, let me know. And boom, I'm out of there. I don't stand over and here's why I remove myself. 2 reasons. 1, I expect pushback. I expect resistance from the strong-willed child. If you have a strong-willed child, when was the last time that they just did something when you asked? Never. And we keep waiting for it to, it's not going to happen. I believe it's human nature. Very quickly, for those of you who are from religious background, I've never seen immediate obedience in the Bible. Here's why. Moses, God calls Moses out of a burning bush. Moses, lead my people out of the wilderness. What did Moses do? Argue with God repeatedly. I don't have a good speaking voice. I'm not a good leader. Argued. Abraham, father of many nations, you're going to have a child with Sarah. What did he do? Goes and commits adultery and has sex with another woman. He wasn't obedient. King David, who we all love, man after God's own heart, except when he was after Bathsheba and made sure that her husband was murdered. Anybody in here commit adultery and murder? And yet he's our beloved King David, right? I'm just saying, if you're a Christian, we have this thing in religious circles like, oh, it's all about good behavior. No, it's not. Point is, it's not about good behavior. It's about grace. Everybody in the Bible was horrible. Jacob, father, right? God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob was a horrible human being, was he not? Can I come back to you? Jacob deceived his father. Does that make sense? Let me give you 2 more. Jesus, in case you're not convinced. The night before he dies, says this, Father, if this cup may pass from me. What's he saying? Is there another way? I don't want to be separated. 3 times he did that. Watch the words, really instructive. Nevertheless, not my will be done, but yours. It meant he was wrestling with it. One final one, cool parable. I think it's Matthew 19. If you're not religious, it doesn't matter. It's just interesting. Read through history. There's always 2 kids in every old story. Strong-willed and the other one. And the one that had the good heart was the strong-willed one. The good child is always the resentful older brother, like in the prodigal story, son. The kid was nasty. Father, I've always done everything you've asked. I'm self-righteous. Strong-willed child is like, I did hookers and blow, but now I know it's wrong, and I ask forgiveness, and he's got a big heart. Sorry, but that's what he did. So, in their day. Sorry about that. But it's just true. He was the one that ended up with the good heart, not the self-righteous one. So, father has 2 sons. Sons, go into the vineyard and do the work for me. One son, why, of course, Father, I love vineyard work. He was the Eddie Haskell of his day. Only he didn't go and do the work. The other son, vineyard work, stupid. I'm not going to do it. Only later he changed his mind, went and did the work. And Jesus said, which of the 2 sons did his father's will? And it will blow your brain if you're a religious Christian, right? Of like, no, that's different. So I remove myself, 3 chores, 7 o'clock, out of there because I expect him to, You know why they do that? To draw you into a fight. Because they know it irritates you and you bite on it every single time. It's your issue. I used to tell my son sometimes, Rob, here's the deal. I'm about to tell you something you're not going to like. Don't need you to like it. Don't need you to like me. I just want it done. You want to complain the whole time? Great with that. Get it done. I'm not moved by that. I know, but don't get moved by their stuff. They do it to suck you into a fight. So, does that make sense? Second reason I remove myself, and we'll close with this. I give him space to do his chores and do them differently than I would do them. I want them to do A, then B, then C. Look, if you just start right now, you would be done in 45 minutes, and then you will have time the rest of the night to do video games, whatever. How many of us do that one? If you just start now, if you do the hardest thing first, you'll get momentum, and it's all rational, and it doesn't matter. So it was 3:45 when I asked him. I go away, I come back at 4:30. Has he done anything? Nope. He's sitting on that living room couch playing his video games. It's 5:30. Has he done anything? Nope. 6 o'clock. You don't even drink. You just popped open your first bottle of wine. He hasn't done a thing. 6:20, nothing. You're on your second bottle. 6:30, nope. Finally, at 6:34, he gets his butt off the sofa and he starts to do his chores. And here's your first thought, I guarantee. He only left 26 minutes to do his 3 chores. Now he's going to do a half job. How many of you do that? Because you're projecting out thinking, if you don't do everything with excellence as a child, when you get a job one day, it doesn't translate. It doesn't. My son was virtually useless as a teenager. He didn't do anything. That kid's more disciplined than most of the men in here. He wakes up, he has a written goals. How many of the men in here do written goals? He does them every single day. They're written because I used to tell him, successful people have a yellow legal pad. I don't know why, but the yellow legal pad. Yellow legal pad with written goals, and you'll be successful in life when you put your goals down. He does that now, but did he do it when he was a teenager? No. It's stupid. They come to it, but just relax. So I wanted him to do A, then B, then C. What's he going to do first? C. Why? I don't know. They're irritating. What's he going to do after he does C? No, he's going to do Z. I didn't ask you to do Z. But after he did C on the way to doing B, you know what happened? He walked by the bathroom and he saw the toilet and he thought, it'd be interesting to take the toilet apart and not put it back together again. And here's what I would tell you, and I mean this sincerely. You've got to let your kids do Z. Your kids are intrigued and passionate about things that they don't get grades for. I had a parent in Dallas who said, my son is obsessed with elevators. How many of you have kids that have an obsession with something? And we always put it off. I can get that kid to do his homework very easily. Son, there's a Hilton down the street that has 34 floors. If you get your homework done in the next 45 minutes, we'll go down to the Hilton. I'll let you ride for 45 minutes. Or better yet, grab your backpack. We're going to go down to the Hilton. I'll sit you in the elevator. I'll come back in a couple hours. You'll be done with your homework. By the way, he's going to have some retired teachers sitting on the floor of the elevator doing homework with him because they're going to be like, what are you doing, son? Fascinated by elevators. And you've got to feed those things. In Northern Virginia, this is hard because you don't get grades for that. Does that make sense? But I will tell you, I'm 52 and I mean this with all my heart. Many of your kids are never going to do their chores at home. Your son may never do much at home, but when he's out, he may do lots of other things. When I look back, Casey did very little at home, but he had a job from the time he was 14. He reffed hockey games, he worked his butt off, he volunteered, he did tons of stuff outside the home, but in the home, not that much. And you're going to wrestle because you're like, but my daughter does all of these things and my son does nothing. That's not fair. And you're just going to have to deal with that. I don't treat kids the same way. And you're going to have to look at your daughter and say, I know, because you're a people pleaser and you're going to need therapy for that one day. And I love that because you just do what everybody says. Your brother's different than you are. And I'm raising him to be different. I don't ask does that make sense? Look, if you've got 3 kids, I guarantee this is going to happen. Strong-willed child is not going to do his chores. He's going to pay his one sister to do them, and he's going to manipulate his brother. And you know whose issue that is? The one who got manipulated. You need to talk to them and say, stop being a pushover. You need to ask for money for it. You're too easygoing. Is that not true? It's absolutely true. And you need to go to your son and say, you know what, that's good thinking because you've determined chores are stupid and they're boring, but you're really good at making money, so you go and make money and you delegate. One day, look, you're never going to work for someone. You're going to get fired from all your jobs, and eventually you're going to own your own business and you're going to hire all the compliant kids in school, right, to do your work for you. Because that's how it works. Is that not true? Raise your kids as they are, not who you want them to be. So what I mean this sincerely. They have to do Z. Let them do those things that they're passionate about, even if it means sometimes they don't do their homework and they're not productive. Because in the course of taking that toilet apart, they're learning so much stuff. Look, people who do Z do cool things like invent iPhones. Those of you who are rule followers, you never do anything cool, but you make sure these ship on time, and that's important too. So, no, I'm joking, but not really. Is that not true? It's true. You're just going to wrestle because it's like, no, he's got to do A, B, and C. And along the way, he's messing with something in the home. But I want you to go in that room and be curious and say, why are you so interested in the elevator? Why are you so interested in, well, Dad, I wanted to see how the thing goes. And they're dorky little kids at times, right? They just are. And they're like, I have no idea what he's talking about. But they'll put it together one day and they'll invent something. And it was because you allowed them to be unproductive and do things they didn't get a grade for. And you have to send a note into the teacher and say, listen, we didn't do our homework last night, but look at this picture of what my son built. Look what he took apart. Look what he did. He was learning from that, but he didn't do the project. And if the teacher knocks his grade down, say, I'm okay with that. My son was learning when he did that, and it was important for him to do that. Plus, he had a lot of joy when he was doing that. The busy work, I do that half the time anyway. I'm kidding. So after he does that, he's going to do B. B is easy. Sweep the floor. Your son has to put the broom behind his back and between his legs. And it's going to frustrate you because he's not going to do it the right way. And finally, at 6:59 and 59 seconds, he's going to do A. And here's your appropriate response. Rob, nice job doing your chores. But it didn't look the right way. You didn't do it fully. You didn't do it with all you had. But for you, not bad. You actually did something. And I'm not kidding with that. That's what you have to, does that make sense? So I have to close up. Thank you to the church for hosting us. We're going to come up, we're going to do the drawing thing. Thank you if you're watching by live streaming. Sorry that I didn't stand on the stage. But it's my own comfort level. I'm like your kids. I don't really care. I wanted to be comfortable and connect with people here. So, but thank you for listening. If you need help, email my son, Casey, Celebrate Calm. Thank you all for coming out. Listen, if you, I hope all of your kids this afternoon have a nasty meltdown so that you can practice this while it's fresh, because it's a really cool thing. But thank you for coming. If you don't mind to end, and then we'll do that drawing. Round of applause for our hosts for doing all of this at New Life, and for you guys for coming out and doing this. So, what are we?